Okay, so today we are going to read um, Abe Lincoln and the Muddy Pig. It's a cute little book in honor of Abe Lincoln's birthday. It's written by Stephen Krinsky and illustrated by Gershom Griffith. Young Abe Lincoln was in a hurry. Most of the time his days were filled with farm chores and odd jobs. But today was different. Today he was going to town to make a big speech. Very nice illustrations. Abe liked to make speeches. He hadn't had much schooling, less than a year altogether, but he knew lots of stories. These things I want to know are in books, he'd say. My best friend was a man who'll get me a book I haven't read. Abe also learned to love to learn to spell big words, even before he can use them. He just stored them up like a squirrel saving nuts for winter. Abe got dressed, gave his thick hair a brushing, and straightened up his full height of 6 feet 4 inches in his stocking feet. Abe was hard to miss in a crowd. His father called him the awkwardest fellow that ever stepped over a 10-rail fence. Abe patted the sleeve of his new suit, the first one he had ever owned. Mostly he wore a homespun shirt and a pair of buckskin pants, and they never quite seemed long enough to catch up with his ankles. Abe had paid for the suit, splitting hundreds of wooden fence rails. Nobody in the county could split rails like Abe. He knew just how high to swing the axe, just how at the right moment to shift his weight for the final blow. Abe was handy with lots of tools. He knew how to hammer and saw and cut hay. He could skin a hide of a deer, butcher a hog into a month of meals. But none of that was on his mind as he started out for town. He had a speech to think about. Abe's long strides covered the ground quickly. 5 or 10 miles was nothing more than a good stroll for him. He lived in Indiana. He walked 9 miles each way to school. One day he walked 34 miles to hear a lawyer give a speech he was curious about. Abe hoped his audience today would be curious about his words, too. As Abe came over the hill, he saw a pig rolling in the mud. The pig was grunting and snorting up a storm. At first, Abe thought the pig was playing. "You're having a fine time for yourself," he said. But then he watched more closely and realized the pig was struggling. "I do believe you're stuck," Abe said. The pig snorted and wiggled some more. Now, Abe didn't like to see any animal suffer. When he was 8, he shot and killed a wild turkey outside his cabin. Seeing the dead bird had left a funny feeling in his stomach. After that, he gave up hunting. He always spoke right up for anyone who was cruel to animals, even just stepping on an ant. He was a kind man. Of course, nobody was planning to step on a pig, and its life wasn't in danger either. It just was scared and alone. "I'm sorry, young pig," said Abe, "but I cannot come to your rescue. I'm wearing my new speech. I have to give a speech in less than an hour." Abe stepped around the mud hole and moved on. He tried to put the pig out of his mind. His speech was what mattered. He thought all about the people who were coming to listen to him. "Keep thinking about that speech," he told himself. But it did no good. His thoughts kept returning to that poor little pig. I don't know if you're getting to see the whole picture. Oops, I lost my page. Sorry about that. Finally, Abe stopped in his tracks. A pig might not be a person, but he still deserved help. Abe sighed and returned to the mud hell. The pig was still there. Easy, said Abe. We'll have you out in 2 shakes. Now, Abe was a champion wrestler. Folks reckoned him maybe the best wrestler they had ever seen. But the pig didn't know that. It didn't realize Abe was only trying to help, so he put up a pretty good fight. By the time Abe freed the pig from the mud, it was hard to tell them apart. Abe looked down at his muddy suit and shook his head. There was no time to go home and change. Besides, he didn't have anything better to wear. I'll get better at this. When Abe got to town, he found a crowd gathering. In the past, he had enjoyed standing on a tree stump or a fence to talk to other farmers, but this was more than just a chat among friends. Abe's audience had come to hear him speak about their dreams of the future. They were hoping he could put into words their feelings and ideas that they couldn't quite say for themselves. Abe's speech was about the river and how important it was to their lives. The river provided water, of course, and also power to run the grist and sawmills. But the river was always also the best way of move goods. The country was growing up fast, Abe explained. They needed to make traveling by river safe and secure. That would help everyone in the long run. When Abe spoke, he didn't shout or make people nervous. He spoke plainly, listing his facts one by one, and then weaving them together to make a point. His hand followed the pace of his words, moving in and out of his pockets as he spoke. Abe hated when anyone spoke in a way he couldn't understand, so he made sure he didn't talk too fancy. The mud on his suit was still there, but nobody seemed likely to mention it. People cared more about what Abe said than how he looked. People nodded as he spoke and clapped when he was done. The speech had been a great success. Why, even the pig seemed to like it. See the pig over there? And this was a story based on a story passed down about Abraham Lincoln as he was growing up. And there is a timeline of his life that you can take a look at your leisure. But this was a very interesting story about Abe Lincoln and how he cared for people and animals.